understood the purpose of the human experience. And of course, we talked about the Creator, and we talked about creation. And it was nothing like what we were learning in the Catholic elementary school we all attended together. Now, one of the things that we knew that night was that this gift, this divine connectedness, would last until we fell asleep. And so we did, as children often do, and we fought to stay awake. Being so wise was so wonderful. But one by one by one, we drifted off to sleep and back into the sweet innocence of childhood. The next morning we woke up and the gift was gone. I don't think we ever spoke about that night again. But at least for me, the gift left an echo. Now I got back into the business of growing up, back into my childhood, went back to school. Time marches on. As I got toward the end of my elementary school experience, another truth started to bubble up. And that was that I was a little bit different than the other girls in my class. 8th grade, by the way, for Catholic kids, or the end of elementary school is 8th grade, and that means you're like 12 or 13 years old. The other girls in class were very interested in the boys. For me, the boys were all my friends, and I was interested in them, what ones I wanted on my baseball team and my basketball team and how we win. That was about it. You know, when you're in 8th grade, different is dangerous. So I just kept it to myself. And then we left elementary school and we went where you go, the all-girl, private Catholic girls' school, right? It's that school that's across the street from the all-boys school. You know, like that street is going to stave off the power of biology. And my unique weirdness, which by the way, at this point, I didn't even have a name for, I didn't know what happened to anybody else besides me. My unique weirdness was taking up more and more of my time as I entered high school. But there was this other phenomenon that showed up, and it was this. There were girls that I knew that became pregnant. And these pregnant girls in high school, they just disappeared. And I don't mean they went to a different school or we didn't see them for a while. They were gone. The pregnant girls, there was no baby showers, there was no birth announcements. You didn't run into them at parties or at the grocery store. You never heard of them. They disappeared. And in my mind, these ladies had committed a sin of timing. At this point in my life, I was every day considering committing the sin that I was told was a sin against nature. If they disappeared, what would happen to me if anybody ever found out about my unique weirdness? I kind of figured I would just burst into flames like a monk in protest out there in the quad. So I had to develop a strategy for survival, and it was this. I was going to fake heterosexuality. I was pretty sure I could pull it off, too. So I got a boyfriend in the freshman year, and I kind of kept him through the end of high school. And as all, totally normal with the high school thing, that ended. And I dated around a little bit, and then I went to college, and I met this guy he was different, and we had a lot in common, and we liked hanging out together, and we were older, and I knew what to call my unique weirdness. And I started thinking, this might work. I might be able to make this work. This might be the one. I think I can do this. I think I can live with this. And so I finally told him, I said, I think I might be a lesbian. I mean, he didn't care. He kind of dug it that I knew that, and I was going to pick him. So this was it. Now, I'm thinking at this point, you guys all got to be saying, Leah, what does the shooting star thing in 1975 and all this sexual orientation stuff of your childhood have to do with anything? I'll tell you, it was that echo. So the night before my wedding in 1987, the echo showed up. I was laying in bed the night before, and that echo was reverberating in my bones. And this is what it sounded like. You are making a huge mistake. But I had a plan, and I was sticking to that plan. I left that behind. I walked myself down that aisle, and I promised my friend, before God and both of our families, that I would live this lie until the day I died. And we did it. And it was okay. It was actually more than okay. You know, for a while, it was great. There was some really great stuff about it. We ended up with 3 kids, 3 beautiful daughters. And God knows how many grandkids we're going to end up with. And that tremendous blessing came out of this enormous intentional lie. But the echo was still there. The kids needed a foundation, a spiritual foundation. My kids were getting a little bit older, and I thought they needed a spiritual foundation. Actually, I was the one that needed a spiritual foundation. And I know I've been talking to you about my Catholic schooling, but that actually started out with a pretty significant lie, too. You know, when you want to go to the Catholic school, you have to have an intake interview and give them a bunch of money. And I was about 7 when that meeting took place, I think. And we sat there in the principal's office. Sister Elizabeth, your full-on nun with the black and white habit, the whole 9 yards. And she says to my mom, now you know, regular church attendance is a requirement for all our students here. And my mom says to the very proper nun, we attend church regularly. Now, this meeting was happening after Easter, and I knew, my 7-year-old little self, that we hadn't been to church since Christmas. That's the lie that I started my foundation with. And as I got into the schooling and started, you know, you have religious studies every day, even when you're in 3rd and 4th and 5th grade. But by the time I get to 7th and 8th grade, and certainly in high school, what I was learning in there was, it was bullshit. You know, I just couldn't believe that the God that created all of this could be that petty. And so I had no faith. And the more they talked to me about it, the shallower I got. So my kids needed a foundation, and I went out church shopping. The church shopping story, it's a good one. It's a whole talk unto itself. It's a tragedy, it's a comedy. We're just going to jump ahead to the good part, okay? My little family had relocated to West Sacramento in an attempt to bring more happiness and stability by changing the zip code. And take it, some of you've tried that? Not real successful, but in the end, it ends up good. So I was out exploring my new city one day, and I kind of wandered over to the crusty side of town. I was lost. And I kind of floated down West Capitol Boulevard. And I saw this little sign, and I'm not kidding. This sign's like this big. And it's in front of this weird little building with this big iron fence around it. And the sign says, the Center for Spiritual Awareness. And it caught my eye. And I think it's significant that it said the Center for Spiritual Awareness and not the Church of Spiritual Awareness. If it had said the church, I'd have just kept on going by. But I really had no idea what a center was. And I'd like to tell you that I ran in there that day or I hustled on over there that Sunday. I didn't. I think it took about a year for the echo and my curiosity to send me in there. But I eventually walked through those doors. I wandered over there one day, parked my car back behind the big black gate. I walked through the door. I was greeted by this lovely man in a beautiful green suit with bright, sparkly green eyes. Brother Chin said to me, "Good morning, welcome, we're glad you're here." And then he gave me an unsolicited hug. I went in. I can't remember anything about the sermon. Sorry, Rev. I cried in public that day. And at that time in my life, that was really unusual. I came back for more of those unsolicited hugs. Now, family life at this point was becoming pretty untenable. I was huddled in the closet of my own chosen lie, peeking out through the now pretty well open door. And one day, the man I married came and shoved me out of the closet. I wasn't ready, and I was pissed at him for a really long time. But I gotta tell you, it's probably the nicest thing he ever did for me, other than those 3 beautiful girls. As I tumbled out, the heavy cloak of shame and deceit fell off with unimagined ease. And I found myself standing there in the bright light of who I really am. And the echo was closer to the surface than it had ever been. Looking back on the 1975 experience, and specifically getting up in the morning after I knew something powerful had happened the night before, there are 3 things